When asked what the best class for all game modes in Guild Wars 2 is, I'd have to say Guardian. It's a tanky, team-oriented role that is simple but very effective. It provides a lot of the strongest boon, Aegis, for avoiding PvE mechanics. It shares out stability to its allies, which is very important for controlling your character in all game modes. And in PvP, it takes advantage of objectives with its powerful class mechanic of symbols, which controls area well. With that being said, there are many different builds you can play on Guardian, but if you wanted to just stick to one build and experience all of the game modes of Guild Wars 2 without having to get different sets of gear, here's what I would do. Firebrand is without a doubt the strongest team support build for large-scale world versus world and endgame PvE content with its many tome skills to meet any situation's needs. However, in PvP it is quite vulnerable, so instead of playing Firebrand there, we can just take a core Guardian build of traits with the same playstyle. I would use a double melee weapon playstyle that has a lot of mobility and sustain with hybrid damage output, but also has burst to chain kills very well with the Radiance trait line, recharging your Tome of Justice every kill and buffing your torch. So if Guardian is the best class and this is the best Guardian build, this is, in my opinion, the best build in the game. Anyways, this is the Celestial Paladin. Now before we get into the build, let's start with the basic Firebrand mechanics. Your virtues become tomes, and entering into a tome gives you access to new skills which you can cast at the cost of a tome page. Once you run out of tome pages, you are forced to leave the tome and it goes on cooldown. Because each skill uses one page, it is better to use the more powerful 4 and 5 skills first to get the most value out of your pages. It can be very daunting to learn what each skill of every tome does, but one easy way to remember what each skill does is remembering the ranges of each skill, because each tome skill can be compared to other tome skills. So each tome 1 skill is a cone in front of you, each 2 skill is a very point blank small AoE, the 3 skills are ranged ground targeting skills, and the 4 skill and the 5 skill are wide point blank AoEs, where the 5 skill is usually a buff on your allies. Specifically, the Tome of Justice gives burning and damage and a little bit of CC on the 3 skill, which will pull enemies in. The 4 skill is big and reliable damage, so try to put that out in a very good spot. The 2 skill is a very long duration of burn that also gives out weakness, but it can be hard to land. The Healing or Resolve Tome gives some condition cleanse on the 5 and the 2 skill. Prioritize the 5 and 4 at first because they give the most healing over time, and then use 3 for vigor and regen to distant allies. Otherwise, use the 1 skill just to get out your healing as fast as possible, or your 2 skill if you need to cleanse. The Protection or Courage Tome has a lot of boon application and utility, which helps you to support your team and to fill in the gaps between your big bursts. The 1 skill gives swiftness and stability, but is rather weak. The 2 skill will taunt nearby enemies and provide you with more resolution, can be a very powerful CC if it's timed well. The 3 skill will place a bubble on the ground which will reflect projectiles. Reflects are a very powerful mechanic situationally, and learning when to use them is important. The 4 skill is your only tome skill that is a stun break, and then it pulses resistance to help you deal with debilitating conditions. The 5 skill gives out stability, protection, and Aegis to nearby allies, which are all 3 of the most powerful defensive boons, and it also gives a toughness buff to them. Going in and out of your tomes will also trigger your sigils that proc on weapon swapping, allowing interesting combos and decisions using this build. The build can be easy to play in open world because of its sustain, but if you get good at it, there's so much complexity and plays you can make that keeps me coming back to this build because it is to me the most engaging build to play on Guardian. So let's get into the equipment. There are quite a few options you can go for. I take full celestial gear and weapons and trinkets, because it allows me to play the role of a support in PvE content with decent healing power and boon duration, be self-sufficient with tons of hybrid damage options and boon application, and roam in world versus world effectively. However, you can go for full damage if you want and play with Viper's gear, but I think you will enjoy the boon durations much better with the Celestial gear. You can turn Ascended gear into Celestial stats by getting charged quartz at the crate obelisk in a home instance. Then you can create inscriptions or insignias, depending on if it's armor or weapons, with the recipes you can buy on the trading post, and then Mystic Forge those with the charged quartz, some ectoplasm, and the anthologies of heroes bought at the Mystic Forge attendant. Then you can just berry farm the trinkets in Bitterfrost Frontier. I use the Rune of Fireworks, which gives you movement speed, which Guardians lack a lot of access to, and then more boon duration and boon application. For the weapons, you have some choices. I would always use the Sword Torch set because the mobility of the sword synergizes well with Torch, because you want to be on top of your enemies to land all of your insane damage from the torch. Then you can choose between a Greatsword and an Axe and Shield set. I personally use both depending on the situation. In PvE, I like the Axe Shield better for the CC and team support. And in World vs. World and PvP, I like the Greatsword mobility and burst better. You can use whichever one you like better. You can even try out Sword Shield Greatsword for the most utility, or Axe Torch Greatsword for the most DPS, but to me this is what I prefer. The sigils I take are Energy and Cleansing on the Sword Torch, Concentration and Energy on the Axe Shield, and Hydromancy and Geomancy on the Greatsword. I use a lot of swap sigils on Firebrand because going into a tome will trigger your sigil internal cooldowns. So if you spend more than 9 seconds in a tome, you can trigger the same sigils of your weapon faster. In other words, if you want to get the benefits of a specific set of sigils, I can stay in a certain weapon and just swap using tomes rather than swapping weapons to get the sigils that I want. It allows me to use Sword to Kite and survive with cleansing and tome usage, and to use the Greatsword to set up big burst windows with using the last tome page for a CC, which will swap me out and then land my double swap sigils for high momentum combos. Also, I use the energy sigil quite a bit because Guardians are low on evades. Mostly they use Aegis, which is good for singular attacks, but not multiple enemies on them at once. It helps to survive more scaled up situations and to save Aegis for more strategic use. The food I use is the fried golden dumplings, which give more boon duration and might application, which can also give you a lot of sustain in the World vs. World version of the build. So let's get into the PvE build. I take Honor, Radiance, and Firebrand. I gain lots of vigor when I crit and share might to nearby allies. My dodges heal myself and allies for about 1k, which allows you to support your allies conveniently, because if you need to dodge, you may need to be healing as well. Also, I take Writ of Persistence, which increases the duration and size of your symbols, and also your allies that stand in them will get healed. My heal skill will also place a symbol underneath me every 20 seconds that will give out protection. So just from Honor, I get Might, Vigor, and Protection. Also Fury I get from standing in my weapon symbols. Then in Radiance, I get Resolution whenever I use my heal skill. And then when I have Resolution, I have 25% increased critical chance and gain more stacks of might. Then there is the Torch trait that whenever you crit, allows you to use your Torch 4 a second time. This is such a powerful trait because not only does Torch 4 do a lot of power and burning damage, but it pulses burning around you, which does more damage than you notice. Also, your Tome of Justice gets recharged whenever you score a kill, which is great for open world and world versus world where the kills come so quickly. You'll also get more crit chance against burning enemies. So this build has 35% crit chance, and then with Fury it goes up to 55, and with Resolution you go to 80, and then against burning enemies that would go up to 90% crit chance, ideally. In Firebrand, I take all of the quickness granting skills because not only does giving quickness to myself and my allies give them a very powerful boon, but it also increases my vitality, healing power, and condition damage while I have it. Then I take Lore Master to retain the passive effects of my virtues while they're on cooldown, and to reduce the cooldown of the skills inside the tomes, because you want to be able to use the powerful 4 and 5 skills more often. The passive of Tome of Justice is a burn every 5 hits, so keeping this passive going while you've used the powerful tome is pretty nice, and the Resolve Tome will keep giving you healing and endurance regeneration over time. Because I take Mantra of Solace, all of the traits that are triggered by my heal skill can be done so more often and instantly, allowing me to fit it more cleanly into a rotation or combo. Just pressing my heal skill, which at its core only gives Aegis and some healing, with all the traits I have, will give out tons of quickness, resolution and might, and protection. So even when you're playing aggressively, you want to use a skill. It can be used reactively to avoid specific mechanics, but it is often just used off cooldown. Mantra of Potence gives even more quickness, and with the Weighty Terms trait, will reduce the cooldown of your mantras enough that it'll give more quickness uptime than Stalwart Speed. I also use the Mantra of Lore for Condition Cleanse and my regeneration uptime, and then Stand Your Ground is a key ability that gives me more of my resolution uptime, which gives me my crit chance and more might, as well as the powerful stability boon for my allies. My elite skill is Signet of Courage for the extra sustain that it gives passively, and the potential to carry rough situations with the insane burst healing it can do on activation, which you can get out more quickly with your quickness. It fully heals 5 targets in a 1200 range, which ignores any healing reduction debuffs, so it ignores Agony and Fractals and Poison. However, it can't be used on down bodies. It really is a game changer in some high pressure situations. With regeneration, symbol healing, and the passive healing from Signet of Courage, you do more than enough healing to carry your team in Fractal challenge modes. However, as a support role, you will need to adapt to each encounter. If your party needs more Reflects, you can go for Wall of Reflection. If you need more CC, go for Sanctuary. The boons you give out are insane, and you do quite a bit of supplemental damage compared to a dedicated DPS player who isn't providing nearly as much to its team. So let's go over the skills. I always start with Sword 2, which is a port to the target, and then immediately press my heal skill to place both the protection and fury symbol down on top of them while giving me all of my boons. From there, I'll most likely have crit, which will have triggered my Torch 4 trait, and then I can use that within a few seconds. And then I want to use the second Torch 4, which will give out a ton of burning. So you want to always prioritize using your Torch 4. From there, you can choose to swap weapons, because you can get a lot more protection uptime for your team from the Shield 4. But if you're looking for more damage, you probably want to stay in your Sword Torch. In your Justice Tome, the basic damage rotation is 2, 4, 5, 1, 2. But depending on the situation, you can pull enemies in with your 3 skill, or delay leaving the tome and precast more Ashes buffs. Then once you leave the tome, you'll have your Torch 4 ready again, and then you can put out a lot more burst. Sword 3 or even the Sword auto attack chain can do decent damage while triggering your Justice passive more quickly. You can dodge or pop into one of your defensive tomes to top off your party or to survive through risky mechanics. If you are supporting a party, try to hit them with all of the quickness buffs with the instant cast mantras and stay near them to keep healing them with regeneration, symbols, and the Signet passive. In Axe, you also have access to symbols that deal damage and a good auto chain, but the pull is really important for pulling in enemies, and in combination with your Shield 5, you can push them into a wall together and really organize enemies very neatly to cleave them down with your powerful AoEs. Shield 4 is just a cone in front of you that can give extra protection and Aegis to your team. There isn't a dedicated rotation to this build, as it's pretty simple. Using your tomes and timing your Aegis to protect your team while doing damage is where the real skill of this build comes in. So I've turned on the moderately threatening area pulsing damage and try to survive through it and see if I can kill this golem. So I'll start out by doing my protection and fury from the axe. I'll swap to the sword, and then I'll just do the DPS rotation while upkeeping all the boons and stuff. So let's do it. So go in and do the DPS. I put out all the prot. I'm gonna do the tome combo here. I'm gonna go back into sword. My sword torch 4 is up. I will put down my prot symbol again. I'm going to swap into the axe here to get more protection uptime because yeah, I'll probably need that to survive this. And maybe I'll give stability here. Swap back into the sword, give out my torch burns. Now I am getting pretty low. I'm going to double dodge here to get some healing. And my tome is going to be up soon, so I'm going to wait for my Zealot's Fires to cast. And then I'm going to my tome, do the DPS, and I am getting pretty low here, so what I'll do is give myself some protection, and then I'll use my healing tome, give the 4, 3, and then I'll just spam the 1, and then I'll go back into my sword. I've got the torch 4 procced, and I'm just going to use all my boons here. I'm running out of protection here, so maybe I'll go into the prot tome real quick, give out a little bit of that. And then I'll leave. I've got the torch procs. Now I'm going to go into the axe just for more protection. And I'll do the fire tome here as well, just because I have to wait for my torch weapon swap anyways. And we're surviving pretty well at this point. I can go into the Signet of Courage if I want to heal. And I'm just pressing my mantras every, like 7 seconds. And yeah, I can use the heal here. Why not? And yeah, we're pretty much gonna kill this. You lose a little bit of passive healing without the Signet of Courage, so you don't want to just use that randomly. But yeah, so now my torch is on cooldown. I'll use the tome and give myself I've got the torch stuff again. I'm going to go into the shield. Oh, we just killed it. So that's pretty much how it works. This is a Fractal 98 challenge mode, Nightmare Fractal. And I am playing the role of the Healbrand. But normally in like a pug group, which this is, a Healbrand will normally run full minstrels or even sometimes plague doctors or harriers. Now as Celestial, I have the ability to provide very similar support on the Celestial Paladin build, and I can do quite a bit of damage. So mostly when there's like downtime and there's really no mechanic for me to be supporting my team with, I can do damage. And that, I mean, it's really not necessary to do the damage, but it's just kind of nice to be able to have that autonomy. Whereas if I were on like the Arc challenge mode, right, there's the mechanic to do the anomalies, and if your team doesn't do the anomaly and you're a Healbrand, well, you're kind of not able to complete the encounter, right? So the ability to do damage by yourself allows you to do more mechanics. And even on the boss previous to this, the one where you have to split up and do all of the DPS check, usually the Healbrand goes with the Renegade to the south one, right? But you don't need to have the Renegade with you at all if you're a Celestial Firebrand. So it allows you to, yeah, just do a lot more things by yourself. And yeah, we just finished this phase, so we're going to need to CC. I'm going to swap to my axe and do my shield 5 to CC, and then my axe 3. Then I'm going to burst. You can see a 16,000 burn tick there. So yeah, I had quite a bit of damage to my team, which is kind of valuable. So I'm gonna probably need to, yeah, you could probably Aegis that. The mantra of lore is maybe not amazing on this fight, but yeah, I can still Aegis my team and give them blocks. So we're getting close to the 33% again, so I'm just gonna burst with my torch there, and I'm getting, I'm getting like a 6-7k burn tick there. So now we're gonna split up, and my Signet of Courage is coming off cooldown again, and I'm gonna try. They look like they're kind of struggling right now, my team, so I'm gonna try to Signet of Courage them. Yeah, so I full heal my Scourge there. The chrono goes down before I can get the full heal on them, but we're all gonna survive because we've landed the Signet of Courage, and we're all just gonna be able to Zerg this final thing and they'll revive. So now we're pretty much on the home stretch. We just got a CC and then just kill the boss. So we've got the CC, and I'm kind of stuck in my axe here, but I can go into my tome, and I didn't really see how much damage I did there, but yeah, the boss is almost at 15% already before they even do this mechanic. So yeah, at this point it's a free kill because we just sit here and kill the boss. And you don't really need support in this phase too much either, so it's kind of like in a lot of the situations as a full minstrel heal brand, you're kind of just sitting there like trying to min-max your DPS and doing nothing. So yeah, it is kind of nice. It feels a lot better to play. In PvP, because Firebrand lacks the self-sustain to really make a difference when you're in a losing situation, I instead play a Core Guardian build and use meditations instead of the Firebrand trait line. And instead of going for quickness, which is already kind of low duration in PvP, you just go for more self-sustain from the meditations, which will heal you. So I take the Wizard Amulet because there's not really that many boons on this build, so you don't need any boon duration, which you can't even get in PvP anyways. You get the movement speed from the Rune of the Lynx, and then I take the Greatsword instead of the Axe Shield because you can't even use Axe on non-Firebrand anyways. Double energy, so I have an energy on both sets, and then exposure on my Greatsword because vulnerability is pretty good for power and condition damage, and it's just kind of a bursty sigil, which is good for Greatsword. On my sword torch, I take Smoldering and energy because Smoldering gives you more burn duration, and this is where most of your burns are going to be coming from. I replace the Honor trait line with the Valor trait line and the Firebrand trait line with the Virtues trait line. I take Unscathed Contender because there's nothing else you can really take here. Absolute Resolution because giving 3 Condi Cleanse to your entire team in a group fight is actually pretty strong, so you can actually support your team quite a bit with the Condi Cleanse from Absolute Resolve and the Stability and Stun Break that you give your team from Indomitable Courage whenever you use your F3. So your virtues are instant cast when you're Core Guardian, and in Radiance it's also going to boost your F1 because your F1 will give blind to nearby enemies whenever you use it. So you have the meditations traits in Valor, which is going to give you a lot of self-sustain. You're basically taking 5 meditations on this build, so you have a lot of self-healing from that. And how you want to play the build is you want to go in with your sword 2 and then immediately use your torch 4 twice, and by the look of that you can see a lot of burning. If you don't land that, then what you can do is you can use your sword 3, or you can swap to your Greatsword and you can chase with Leap of Faith and then try to land Binding Blade, and if you get that, then you can put down your Symbol of Resolution and then pull them after you've got the 5 on them, and then use your Whirling Wrath on them. The timing of your Virtue of Justice is very important because it will give a buff to your allies that makes their next attack give 3 burns. So if your entire team is attacking one target and you use Virtue of Justice, you'll give them 3 times however many allies hit them with the burn stacks. And it's not like this venom is lost if you miss. You keep it until your next attack, so it's a very reliable damage. But you want to time it very well because you can use the blind strategically to prevent counter pressure, or if you use it too early, then you can't really secure the kill because you lose the passive effect. Unlike Firebrand, where you really want to keep your passive effect, you don't really have a choice here because the active of Virtue of Justice is so good, you really want to be using it very often, but it is a 17-second cooldown, so it is very good. And because you're in Radiance, if you get a kill with your F1, it'll recharge instantly, and it can allow you to get multiple kills in a row. Because Wizard Amulet doesn't have that much crit chance, you get your crit chance from Fury, which you get from either your sword symbol or any of your meditations, and from having Resolution from Righteous Instincts, which you can get from using your heal skill or any of your virtues. So it has a hybrid playstyle that works out in small scale fights, but if you're against like really tanky enemies, you're going to need the coordination of your allies to get kills. And this build fills the role of a roamer more so than a team fighter or duelist, so you want to just go around looking for kills. So this is a ranked PvP match on the hybrid meditation core guardian, and as a roamer I'm going to go around getting kills for my team, and I won't try to hold nodes unless I know that it's a good matchup for me in a 1v1. So here at the start of the match I see they have a Dragon Hunter. Those are usually pretty squishy, but the power rev jumps on me, so I gotta counter pressure them or they're just gonna free cast on me. I target them and I see that they're in the Shiro stance, so that means they don't have a lot of Condi cleanse and they die before they can get their Shiro or their Glint heal off. And we're gonna finish this kill off so that I can get my F1 back, and then I can use the F1 on the Lich to blind them and pressure them a lot more. But I'm going to stick on the Dragon Hunter with my team so that we can secure kills here. So yeah, we're just chasing them and trying to secure kills. Our team is like pinging the map because we've actually tunnel visioned so much that the enemy has actually capped the node even though we've got kills. But see, the thing is, it's not really my job to do that. So I'm just going to keep getting kills with my team, and the power up jumps on me again, but I port to the Reaper to help my team jump on them and basically get some distance from the power rev while also helping my teammates to do damage. And that's kind of like the best situation for this build to be in, is in like 2v2s where you can keep juking around with ports between targets and still providing support to your team from afar. So now we've got the kill on their rev, and I have to be careful because the DH is probably going to shoot at me from afar. Yeah, I get hit by the longbow 5, so I'm stuck here. I got to keep line of sighting. And I am in a very dangerous spot because I have no cooldowns, and they have I think a Reaper on me too. Yeah, a Reaper. I get pulled over the trap luckily, but I'm not going to survive because I have no cooldowns. And my passive burns from just putting on my Torch 4 help me to get their Dragon Hunter down, and my team can get me up now. So now we're going to be chasing this Reaper, but I'm still kind of low on cooldown, so I'm chasing very conservatively. My Elementalist had died at far in a 1v2, so I don't want to go there. So I'm going to use my Greatsword Leap to get back over the wall here and just regroup with my team and see if I can stall them before they get on the node, because we know that there's 3 at far. There's going to be 3 pushing in the mid. We have 2 here, so we're going to be 2v3. So I want to help my Scourge to survive, but I also don't want to overcommit and become the target. So I pop my heal there to get rid of the fear, and I start pressuring the DH so that they can't free cast on my Scourge. I get targeted, and the power rev and the power DH are on me. I use Judge's Intervention to juke, and yeah, I can't really help my Scourge anymore because I've got no cooldowns. I could use my F3 for them, but that's pretty much it. So I'm going to leave and go to far and probably decap that and then go back to mid. But if my team, I could full cap it if I feel like my team isn't going to use my help at all. It is versus a Mirage though, a Condi Mirage, which is actually a good 1v1 for me as a core guardian because the meditations allow you to cleanse without an animation. So usually Condi Mirages are very dangerous because you get interrupted and you can't cleanse. However, even though it's a good matchup, I get 1v3'd because they're playing a very Zergy kind of playstyle where their ult or damage kind of rotate together. So what I needed to do was not go for the 1v1 there, go for the decap, and then as soon as I see that the enemy is going to plus me, I'm not invested into the fight and I can kite and allow my team to cap nodes while I'm outnumbered. So that's kind of what happened anyways, as they got the node, but I died, and me dying is going to mean that my teammates will die. So they're going to keep getting snowballed, and they're actually doing okay in health though, so this is not that bad. So I'm checking if my team is okay. I'm going to port into here and immediately use my F1 as soon as I port in, because the timing is really important. If I use my F1 in the middle of nowhere and then port in, then my teammates don't get the buff. So using it as soon as I port in, and basically as soon as I get in range of my allies, is really important to getting that burst from your teammates. And because of the F1 sharing to your allies and your virtues sharing to allies, you want to be not rotating by yourself, but with your team. So kind of how the enemy is rotating. But now I am in a 1v1 situation with their power rev. The burns are very heavy, so I do have an advantage if I can survive their burst. So yeah, I get the kill here maybe? They're really low. Okay, we get it from the Greatsword 5. But the Reapers here, I use my F3 to get stability to get the stomp. And I take a lot of damage because they are just kind of free casting on me. So I have to be careful. I am going to cleanse the fear. And it looks like, yeah, I think this is a DH with me at far. We're probably going to hold the node with him standing on it. He'll put traps there, and I'm just going to try to bait the Reaper to take the 1v1. And then as soon as they take it, I'm going to port in, and I will do damage. But the power rev is respawning, and my DH is very low. So I try to pull the Reaper, and I get a really good pull there, and that allows us to get the kill. Now we are going to be 2v3. So I back off and try to cleave very safely. I could cleanse some conditions from my ally there if I was aiming it towards them, but I was really trying to cleave instead. So I'm going to chase the Dragon Hunter into mid. They're in stealth. I don't want to get true shotted, so I'm line of sighting still. And they use their tether, which is really nice for me because now I don't have to worry about getting tethered. And they've already rotated into mid, so I can head there. And as soon as I get into mid, I'm going to use my F1, and that gives out tons of burns because I'm sharing it to my entire team. And we can just chase this, yeah, the power rev down and get the kill. And now that we've got this kill, we pretty much got control of the map because we've got another kill on mid. We own far. Our Dragon Hunter is actually probably going to die at far, but I'm trying to get kills, and I'm just going to chase with my team. And one thing that's really good right here is porting through this wall. So once you can close gaps and create distance from enemies by using shortcuts like that, you can really feel the power of this build because you're kind of slow as Guardian even with the movement speed of Lynx rune. So you have to make it up by using your teleports kind of intelligently. So we're going to chase this kill on the Soul Beast here. And I land my Greatsword 5 into Judge's Intervention, and I just do my entire burst because they can't really go anywhere. And if they blocked, I would have pulled them, or if they leapt away, I would have pulled them. So we secure that kill, and now we can just keep focusing targets. We're kind of like snowballing at this point. The game is pretty much over because the enemy team can't recover. I give all of my virtues to my ally there so they don't die, and that's one of the main reasons why I like this build is because you play as like a roamer that can also support your allies, and that's just kind of invaluable, other than the fact that the build can be easily focused in situations where you don't get a lot of support yourself. It does have sustain and support for its allies, so when you're with your team, it's a very strong build. So yeah, that is pretty much how you play the core Meditation's Hybrid Guardian in PvP. In World vs. World, I use the Firebrand instead of Core Guardian because the self-sustain of the Core Guardian doesn't scale up as well, and you don't have access to any reflects on Core Guardian, which is super important when there's rangers everywhere in World vs. World and you've got access to reflect on the Tome of Courage. So you kind of need to play Firebrand when roaming in World vs. World, and Firebrand is also very good in Zergs too. I take the Stalwart Speed trait instead of the Mantra trait because you're only using the Mantra of Solace and Mantra of Lore, so you're going to get more quickness from taking Stalwart Speed. And then I take Valor, but instead of taking the Meditation traits, well, I do have the Meditation Heal skill, but instead of the Monk's Focus, I take Altruistic Healing, And this heals you whenever you grant a boon to an ally. And you're giving out tons of boons. So your Rune of Fireworks will give you 6 stacks of might, which all 6 instances of that might will proc altruistic healing. And then it'll give you Fury and Vigor. And then whenever you use your heal skill, it'll give you tons of boons because you've got the Resolution. And then Resolution will give you might every second, and every time that might procs, it's giving you altruistic healing. Whenever you use your Tome skills in a large Zerg, this skill gives 3 times 5, so it's going to give you 15 instances of altruistic healing. So it scales up very well in World versus World. You know, you've got the pulsing resistance as well. So there's just so many boon applications that give you value off of altruistic healing, and it allows you to basically gain a lot of your sustain to allow you to be very aggressive at the same time. The one thing that's really important though is learning how to port to targets to escape, because Guardian is a very slow class normally, but this build has a lot of mobility in it. So you need to enable show all enemy names, which is a very important setting, because as you can see here, I can see these golems from afar and I can target them and port to them using my Sword 2 or Judge's Intervention. And what that means is if I'm being chased in this direction from these guys or whatever, I can target something over there and use the port to get away. And then you can swap to the Greatsword and de-targeted Leap of Faith. So it's very important to get used to that, or you're going to be dead a lot and it's not going to feel as rewarding to play this build. Then I take Renewed Focus because that's such a more valuable skill in PvP game modes, because invulnerability and the very long tome cooldowns can get recharged, which can feel really good. Also, you have the Greatsword combos with your swap sigils. So I have Hydromancy and Geomancy on my Greatsword. So what I often do is I'll go in and do my Torch Burst, right? And then I'll swap to my Greatsword, and that'll do the Geo Hydro and help me to stay on top of the target to use my Greatsword Whirl. And if they try to escape, I can use Binding Blade with Judge's Intervention and then put the symbol on them, pull them into it, and then with quickness I can use the Greatsword Whirl because my heal skill gives me quickness. So you want to get your burst out in that quickness, do your combos. So there's one combo like this is going into your Flame Tome, and then you'll do your big burns like that. You'll maybe knock people like this, and then what you'll do is you'll have 2 pages left. You'll use Ashes of the Just, and then what you'll do is you will use the pull and JI in, and that'll proc your sigils as well. And then you can immediately go into your Greatsword 2, because whenever you leave a tome, you'll get quickness as well. So the combo with your Fire Tome would look like this. So I've got 2 pages left. I use the Epilogue, and then I use this, and then I Greatsword 2, and it does quite a bit of damage after pulling them all in like that. So yeah, just understanding combos, understanding how to escape with your ports, and just getting your boon up times and supporting your team while also giving yourself sustain from the altruistic healing is really important. So if you like this kind of video, then give it a like and subscribe for more. If you'd like to see more footage of this build in World vs. World roaming, then stick around. Otherwise, support me through the links below. Thank you to all of my patrons, and I will see you guys next time.